My name is Femke Niekerk. I'm from the city of Groningen, and we participated in the Interreg North Sea project, Active Cities, in the last 5 years. We finished it last December. And Active Cities has given us the opportunity to do a small-scale experiment in the city of Groningen. And it was in the work package of redesigning the street to promote active mobility. And well, here you can see the different member states that participated in this program. And also Lund and Hamburg did similar street experiments like we did in the Active Cities program. Maybe first to point out where the city of Groningen is located, because probably not everybody visited it before, I can imagine. So the city of Groningen is in the northeastern part of the Netherlands. It's situated in the province of Groningen. Our pilot area is in the northwestern part of the city of Groningen. So it's not inner city, but a bit outside. It's a 15-minute walk to the inner city of Groningen. The pilot area is centered around a shopping center, and it's a well-visited shopping center, well accessible at this moment by car. And yeah, we have a lot of future plans in this area. The shopping center will be reconstructed, but the city will also improve public space around this shopping center and improve walkability in this area. So we did have the opportunity to test already a design in one of the streets at the eastern side of the shopping mall. To give you an impression of the current situation, here you can see the shopping mall. This is on the northern side, and it's dominated by traffic. At when the pictures were taken, it was not really peak hour, but it can be there very busy, and it's quite dominated by cars, and crossing the street is quite difficult on all sides of the shopping center. So it's really important also for the future to increase livability of this area, but also improve walkability and make it easier to cross the streets around this shopping center. So in the pilot, we did a lot of different activities, but one of the activities was the street experiment for 6 weeks. And main aims to do this was mainly it was also to connect with the shop owners, with the residents in this area, to be able to discuss how it should look like in the future. And doing a street experiment like we did is really a good way of doing this. So more in general, we would like to have insight in the perspective of the shop owners, of the residents, of the visitors, what they think about the walkability and how we can improve it in the future. We have made new designs that are going to be implemented in the future projects that are upcoming. Really important, and what also is a good opportunity when you do a street experiment is that people can experience that if you leave out the cars and add green and seats and make it a nice environment, that people can experience what happens in these spots. So this is basically what we were aiming for during with our small-scale street experiment. Ira already mentioned, but this experiment fits really well in our more general policies, in our SUMP, Groningen Well on the Way. I have shared at the end of the presentation also a link to an English version of our SUMP, so you can check the content of the plan. And we also have guidelines for design of public space. And I really can recommend to read this too, because this is a very inspiring document about different dimensions of the street and how you can redesign. And it can maybe be an example for other cities. What we strive for in our SUMP is that within the ring road structure, it's not really a ring road in the city of Groningen, it's more like a square, but that walking and cycling is the fastest option. So you can go by car in the city, of course, but cycling mostly is faster. So, and this street experiment, but also all the plans around the Paddepoel Center fit very well in this philosophy. Just one slide before, what we actually did during the street experiment is that we closed one street at the eastern side of the shopping center. We closed it for the cars, and we redesigned it. We used a lot of green. We used different possibilities for sitting here and being there, to stay there, we used also artificial grass to give it a bit more color. That was not our first option, because we preferred more like using paint or coloring the streets, but that was really difficult because we had to restore the situation. This head should be the same as it was before. So, and with paint, that can be an issue to remove it. So in the end, we have chosen this grass that is reused on playgrounds, because reuse was also an important starting point for us. But this is basically what we did during this 6 weeks. And we also programmed different activities in this area. So, well, here you have an impression how it looked like during the 6 weeks. Almost 1 year ago, it was in the period of June 25. And we were really lucky because it was nice weather all weeks almost. So that was a big stimulus, of course, to use the area. We organized, or we facilitated other organizations to organize activities. There was a big market, a food market organized that was very successful. We had also a big opening event. But in the pictures, you also can see that it was used during lunch breaks, and just used to chill and sit and enjoy a bit the environment. So the atmosphere was really different than when the cars drive through. So these pictures give a kind of impression how it looked like. Of course, we asked the visitors during the experiment, how do you experience the redesign? What do you think of it? Are you enthusiastic? And we have spoken with around 70 respondents. And what was clear from the beginning, that there were mixed emotions. And the mixed emotions are basically caused because of the car closure. And the shop owners worried about the accessibility of the shopping center. So they had some doubts about if this would be successful, or if there would be chaos in traffic around the shopping center during peak hours. There was no chaos. Only the first week people had to find the new way how they could reach it. So after 1 week, most shop owners were quite confident that it worked out well. But what we see in our evaluation, that people still were mixed about mainly the car closure, not as much about the redesign. Some advice we received was like, what was less successful. People didn't like that much the artificial grass. Especially with rain, it could be a little wet. When it was wet, it became a bit slippery sometimes. So that was a point of attention. For the redesign, we had some issues with the cyclists in the area. They still could go through, and the e-bikes, sometimes even speed pedelecs, they speeded the area, or they passed the area with high speed. So that has given some issues. And we also moved the materials a bit around to slow the cyclists down. People were really enthusiastic about the green, the plants, the seats and the benches, and the quietness in the area. So we also got, it was like mixed, we also got a lot of compliments about the redesign. And the quote I liked most was like, keep everything in, the area feels calmer, I feel less stressed, and my heart rate goes down a bit. So that was really a big compliment also for the redesign. But the main lesson here is, to manage expectations. If a car closure is involved, there will be always also protests and discussions. Be aware of that. It's not only a successful story in that sense. But overall, we were really satisfied with these results. So we evaluated also internally, of course, with the project team. We took lessons from the design, especially related to the cyclist, that when it will change permanently, then we are going to look for different solutions, how to handle the cyclists that go through this street. If you do a street experiment, I think it's really important to program some activities. So we had some events, but there were also some sport activities and some neighborhood associations that had meetings there during these 6 weeks, because then you show how you can use this area. It gives a kind of an example what you can do there, and that has been really important. For us, it was also, we have many lessons learned about how to organize it internally from the municipality side. Our municipality, we are not really experienced with doing these street pilots. And most of our projects are aiming at a permanent change. And but if you do something temporarily, you have to take into account that all the materials you use can be easily moved and removed, and but also for the green, we wanted to be replaced. It's not only all the plants we used, it should be replaced to another destination, because you want to do it in a sustainable way. And that is kind of a flexible new way of working that we also had to find out during the process. So we learned a lot also for future experiments. In the right, you see also a picture of our alderman. Of course, political support and an enthusiastic alderman is really important to be successful in these kind of street experiments. And so there was a lot of political support, although from the shop owner side there were some protests. So then it's really important that you have this political support. And we did a lot of communication. We had a lot of contact with the shop owners. And we also anticipated if they had some critical remarks about where the plants were put. We changed a bit the setting. We anticipated also during the experiment on their comments, the comments they made. So it asks for a kind of flexibility in your design. So more in general, when we look back at the experiment, there are lessons learned for the design itself, mainly about the position of the cyclist also when you close it for cars, and we are probably we will make a different design when we change it permanently related to the cyclist to lower the speed. What we experienced is that internally you need different a different kind of organization to organize these flexible temporary street experiments. So that's important to realize. It's also really important to manage the expectations of the citizens and the shop owners, because it is already planned that in the future this street will permanently be closed for cars, so that they know that it's an experiment, but be aware that in the future this is going to be realized, and you can give feedback on how we are going to do it. So management of expectations is really important. And it's important, I think, to realize that you will never get 100% support for these kind of redesigns. It will be mixed. So that makes it really important that you have also political support to do this. And we are definitely going to do more experiments in the future in the city of Groningen. So that's basically, these are main lessons we took from our small-scale street experiment. If you have questions or you have plans to do it yourself, don't hesitate to contact me by mail. And furthermore, I have shared some links to our policy documents that have been translated in English for the city of Groningen.
Thank you, Femke. Are there any questions to Femke at the moment from our participants or our panelist speakers? You can just raise your hand if there are any questions. I'd like to hear about your future plans. Like, are you planning something similar in a like other location, or like do you do these type of street experiments more regularly?
Yeah, we are now looking at the area in front of our railway station. There's at this moment the bus station is positioned there, but it will be removed to the southern side. And then there will be an empty space, and it will take quite some years before it will be redesigned permanently. So we are now discussing what we could do there on a temporary basis. There are also some initiatives that with car sharing and taking away parking lots. And this car sharing is an experiment. And so during the experiment, that you temporarily give the parking lots a different function. So it's a bit like seeing what is popping up, what chances we have, what are good opportunities to do these kind of experiments, and then prolong these kind of small scale street experiments. It's a bit like scanning the opportunities and diving in and trying to do more of it. The intention is to do it a bit in the same way as we did around Paddepoel. We just had local elections here in the Netherlands. So at this moment, it's a bit this is a time of forming new coalitions and not making that many plans for now. So, but in the next half year, we intend to do more like this.
Yeah, I think many of us can relate to that, local elections. I can see that Lena has hand raised. You have a
Thank
question.
you. I understand that the decision is already taken to close this part of the street for traffic. Femke, but how?
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about the way to this decision? Did you experiment on the way before the decision, or how was the path to the decision?
Yeah, it's always a bit difficult if it's to say it's not a final decision yet. So the new coalition has to make the final decisions about this, but it's part of our SUMP to have some car closures in the city so that the cars go to the ring road instead of driving through the whole city from neighborhood to neighborhood. So in that sense, it is in our plans. But what we see or experience at this moment, that there's a lot of arousal in the neighborhood, and that also that there's still, it's still under discussion. But we wanted to be clear also to the shop owners. It is in the plans, so you can. And we, of course, it was also a test about what happens with the traffic flows. If it ended up in a big chaos, of course, then you are going to reconsider if this is a good decision. But for us, it was important to communicate that it is part of the plans. And final decisions still have to be taken, but that the intention is to close it for cars. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Lena. Do you want to comment on Femke's answer?
Very interesting. Thank you. So the intention was set in the SUMP.
Yeah. There are some small crosses on the map of the city of Groningen, like we want to implement 6 car closures, car cuts, we call it.
So you set the number of closures.
Yeah, it's really ambitious. But
Yes.
what you see, if you want to implement it, it gives, it's not easy to implement these car closures, of course. So it takes a lot of time. And of course, we also depend now on the new political coalition. But probably it will be more it will be comparable with our last coalition. So we expect that this line of policy will continue also for the next 4 years.
Thank you.
Thank you for a very good question, and thank you for further insights, Femke. Okay, so a couple of words about Turku. So we are the regional capital of Southwest Finland, and we now have around 210,000 inhabitants. We are a university city, so this means that we have quite a lot of students living here, and we have quite ambitious goals for carbon neutrality related to reducing emissions and increasing the share of active mobility. So challenges like this are something that really need to be addressed in the city to meet these goals and also make city better for everybody. And something about the neighborhood that we had in this challenge. It was this Pääskyvuori neighborhood. It is quite large area. It has a lot of like one family houses, some row houses there as well, and there in the picture you can actually see like there's some cul-de-sacs there, and there's some places where you can also drive through the area. It has always had some issues with some through traffic going on, but everything increases when 2 schools merged
because of some construction work, and that increased the car traffic on top of the existing heavy traffic there. And this led to parents thinking that going to school is too dangerous for their kids, even if the distance to school from home was around 1 kilometer, a bit more for most of the families. And then parents started driving the kids to school, and that of course increased even more traffic, and it created this loop. So people find the area unsafe, then they take children to school by car, and then it increases the feeling of unsafety. So what we did, we combined these pilots of 2 projects. We had one for SUMPs for BSR and one from Schoolhoods project. So we went for this, you could say, stick and carrot approach in a way. So first we did these traffic calming measures. So we organized this kind of system where we closed off the neighborhood into 2 cells, and we blocked the main street there with street furniture and also these concrete blocks. These were wished for the locals, and they were also planned in cooperation with them, trying to make them look nice and positioned in a way that was seen as okay by most of the residents there. And the response here, it was both positive and negative. We had some people who were very negative at first, and they were very worried about extending driving routes to their own homes, for example. But there were quite a lot of these people who ended up changing their opinion and finding the positive side to it, as they realized that how much more calm and safer their neighborhood became. But of course, there were people who found this unnecessary completely. And yeah, it was very heated discussion about this, but in the end, this solution was made permanent. Unfortunately, we were not able to keep all of the greenery things there, so it's mostly like these concrete blocks there, but hopefully we can in the future improve it nicer looking again. And this is now the carrot that came in the SUMPs for BSR project. So we organized a mobility hub to the neighborhood. We located it to the same side of this big main road on the side of the neighborhood as the school. So that means that they didn't need to cross a very busy road to get to the mobility hub. The location was actually requested by the residents because of their school location, and also services were planned with them. For example, I had planned that there could be some parking of e-scooters there for these shared e-scooters, but the parents of the area were concerned that that would lead to children driving with them, or like people taking and using them, and that would also increase the like accidents or something like that in the area. So I decided not to include the e-scooters here. And the users of the mobility hub, they accepted this quite well, and they saw it was like good alternative ways of traveling when car was no longer the obvious choice. This encouraged the city bike usage in the area. Previously, the system was not extended as far from the city center as this neighborhood was, so we added two city bike stations there, so that also helped the neighborhood to adopt to more active lifestyle. We also brought these e-cargo bikes here that are privately operated in the city. We agreed with the operator that they will start a station here at the mobility hub, and people started to use that, especially for grocery shopping. That was revealed from the survey we conducted on the users. And next to this signage, there is also a bus stop, so people can travel by bus from there as well. And residents have given some feedback that they would actually like to make the mobility hub even better and bring more services to it. For example, safe bicycle parking for privately owned bicycles, and also bike repair station that we have in some other locations in the city, but that is something that they wish this mobility hub would have as well. And something quickly about engaging the residents. My colleague and I, who were organizing this carrot and stick kind of approach, we went to the local area quite often. We attended the local events. We organized our own meetings with the residents. We had this small campaign about the National Reflector Day. We were handing out reflectors to the people of the area. They really liked all of this, and it was very good to go actually see the people and discuss the problems they might have. And for example, this feedback we received made us, for example, change the priority of the city bike station at the mobility hub like a bit higher. So that means that there were more bikes available at the mobility hub at all times. And some keys to success is that really listening to the needs of the residents and taking them into account when making the plans straight from the beginning, and also listening to the feedback and adjusting the pilot as you go, if possible. And it was also important that if you take something away from them, like for example, they can't like now drive through directly the neighborhood, you should offer some kind of alternative solutions, like you are, well, in a way, creating a problem, like now they can't use the car to go through some area. What can they do differently? So that's where the mobility hub came into place. It was offering a new solution to the problem. And of course, you need to keep in mind that behavioral change needs time. There is resistance, and it might transform into acceptance once benefits are realized. And some lessons learned is that when you're designing something completely new, it's important to talk within the organization, like in your cities, to solve some practical issues. We had some trouble with getting permits and procedures right because it was the first mobility hub we had in Turku, and there was no proper permitting route for that, so it created some confusion in that. And also location and restrictions is something you need to take into account. For example, we wanted to have bicycle parking here. We tried to get some, but only options that we got through the tendering required constant electrical power, and we were unable to provide this location with electricity within our budget. Yes. And something that is important again here with lessons learned, that you need to be ready to adjust your plans to make everything work smoothly. Thank you. This is this from my end.
Like you know, I come from the city of Greifswald, and first of all, I'd like to say some words about Greifswald. So Greifswald in a nutshell. So like you see in the map, it's on the other side of Sweden, in the opposite of Trelleborg, more or less where you can see the red cross, and relatively near to the Polish border. So we are a compact city, 60,000 inhabitants. We are a student city and historical city, an old Hanseatic town, and maybe one word noch also to the modal split. So at the moment we have a bicycle share of 34%. So we are a bicycle town more or less, and what is quite good that within a radius of 3 kilometers, so 90% of inhabitants are living. So it's quite good for going by foot or for cycling. Okay, like we heard, so we were more or less challenge number two. So within an historical city center, so we have some challenges. One is the allocation of area, of course. So it's all really narrow and doesn't fit for all the different modes, yeah, in the same way. And like you said, so the ongoing through traffic. So having shortcuts with cars through the city center, we like to reduce, or we do not like to have it at all. But then in the end, so it was that was rejected by our new city parliament. So before we developed our, let's say, inner city SUMP, and it was accepted by the old city parliament, but what to do when political opinion changes, what to do when election is in between and you like to start and then new politicians come into power. So what can you do then? And our task now is, because of this rejection of our inner city SUMPs, that we have to work further on it, and there's a wish to have a greater involvement of local businesses. But on the other hand, also car parking is an really issue in politics, and I think it's one of key messages would be also that solving car parking first, and then a lot of other things are solved also, maybe. Okay. So what can you do in between till we have our new adapted inner city SUMP? For us, it was more thinking in small feasible solution, which is not in contradiction with a political opinion, but also small is beautiful. And if you have a lot of small solutions, the addition of a lot of small solutions is also could be also a good solution for the whole city. So one thing we really like is to test mobile parking solutions. So you see this in these two pictures. So we have a mobile solution for cycling, and in the end, if you see, okay, it's well accepted, then you can think about if you install a permanent solution. But first testing, it's a good solution from our point of view, and also to invite people to give their opinion. So we installed a QR code at this mobile solution, and people could give some feedback. Another, let's say, smaller solution is city administration itself. They should be, from our point of view, give an example. So giving good example for their own staff and also for the people. So we installed a new bicycle parking facility in front of one of our administration sites. So that is something we all have to do. Otherwise, we can't say, okay, for companies, for example, you can do something better, but ourselves, we just have no good solution. So that would be everybody can do. Then, of course, so that's not so small solution. Let's say create good conditions, for example, for commuters. So it's our fixed bicycle rack in front of our station. So that is every city more or less should have, we think. Then your bicycle renting system. So it's more or less existing in different cities. So we designed it also. Yeah, we have some communication, like it's the Greifswald bicycle system. So with some advertisement for the city of Greifswald, we do it together with a company. And the further step is to introduce also cargo bikes in this system. It's not existing at the moment, but we think that would be a next step. Then what is also nice, searching for corporations. So for example, you see here a map about attractive cycling routes in the surrounding area. So we did that together with our it's called Greifswald Agriculture Initiative, and they developed some attractive cycling routes, for example, for visiting the organic farms in the near of Greifswald, or also some other routes, some historical trip, let's say, and so on. And that's quite good. They offer some trips for people, and you can use it in this Komoot app, which guides you to this trip. So that's quite nice. So find partners who can develop such things, so that the people know where to go by bike. Also for schools, we had a little solution. So first of all, there was an idea maybe to close one street in front of the school, but that was also some kind of too big thinking. But in the end, we had some smaller solutions, smaller improvements. For example, in the left picture, you see Our colleagues, they made some what's it called, fence breakthrough, for example, that makes it easier for the pupils to um, enter the school. And in the right picture you see, so we have forbidden some kind of wild parking we had before, some confused situation which was somehow dangerous, and just with little signs or like this yellow thing you see, you make it more clear where you can park and where it is not allowed, and that yeah, in the result it's much more safer than before, even if we do not have closed the street. Okay. Then was also quite nice. It's actually an more or less used in Germany. It's a 3 weeks cycling campaign, but it's also worldwide. Cities can join in general, but it's mostly cities in Germany. And we have it every year for 3 weeks, and teams they can register. And last year we had more than 3,200 people going by bike, and yeah, writing down how or using the application how much kilometers they went by bike, and that was what quite nice. And in the end, we reached some more than 450,000 kilometers. And the starting point of our campaign is every year bicycle festival, and that's organized by our local supplier. So that means again, see for some cooperations, maybe your supplier or whoever has the power of people or money maybe to start some festival. So that was also, it's also quite nice to do that, to have that every year. Then I put it into this sign. So it's not a smaller solution, but it's about also cooperation. It's more a big solution. So we have a bicycle access within our city, where central partners are located in our own university, for example, and our university hospital. So both are the biggest employers in the city, and they have really like to improve, for example, the cycling situation, yeah, bicycle parking at their area, for example, along this axis, and therefore we try to get some funding to do with our local partners with national funding to improve bicycle access, for example. And what is good, the main part of this bicycle access is outside the inner city, so it's then not in conflict with the politics, which is mostly concentrated of inner city conflict. And then of course, new field for us also is more using new data methods, for example. I think from our point of view, using bicycles for getting new data. So using some bicycle sensors, it's quite good to collect environmental data, for example, data for fine dust, for example. But still, we are just in the beginning, or still in the beginning of that. But I think that it's could be a topic, or is the topic for the next years for cities, using the moving bicycles for whatever data connected to an environment. Yeah, last but not least, of course, it was more about my presentation, more about cycling, but really do not forget pedestrians. They are, after Corona, it was in Germany, and I think it's in the other countries at all. Pedestrians are the big winners. The share of pedestrians are more increasing. And like you see in the picture, in the right picture, yeah, you see our bridge, and you see a lot of people are outside coming to this area by foot or by bicycle. And in the left picture, you see it's connected to our famous painter Caspar David Friedrich. So we have some signs for the guests, especially for the guests of our city, which show you the places you have to see in connection to this artist, for example. So that's really important. And now we come even to the end, to the key learnings. So small scale pilots still deliver progress when larger plans may fail. That's what we learned. temporary solutions we would advise, helping identify where permanent investment is just justified. Monitoring, for example, regarding this mobile platform is still a topic and not easy, but also use some new data collection methods like you see before with using this bicycles, for example. And last but not least, communication and psychology are crucial for mobility transition. So it's more or less, I think, was Femke in this morning had in their presentation. She called it what was it? That there are some expectations of shop owners and so on, of course. And if you have to really to know the expectation in your communication, then has to address this expectations and maybe also fears. So that's and then yeah, you're quite good to have this in mind. So it's more or less the same, I think Femke and I wanted to say, but with other words. So yeah, thank you very much.
As you already know, I am representing Panevėžys City today. Yes. Okay, so let me start with a very brief introduction to Panevėžys in Lithuania. We are a medium-sized compact city with around 85,000 residents, and we already had a SUMP, Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, in place since 2017. And in many ways, the city seems well suited for active mobility. Distances are relatively short, the urban structure is quite compact, and there is a good potential for walking and cycling. But at the same time, car use still dominated in everyday commuting here. So for us, the key question was how to turn this good potential into real everyday mobility change. In Panevėžys, the challenge was not the total absence of cycling infrastructure. In fact, as you can see here, we have a quite visible bicycle network, and cycling is already quite common in the city. At the same time, our cycling network is still mainly organized around connections between residential areas and the city center, rather than as fully connected system across neighborhoods. So even though cycling is visible in the city in every day, it's still not the first choice for commuting, including school travel. Around schools, we also still saw suggestions, safety concerns, and a lack of convenient bicycle parking, which made this challenge even more practical. Since the challenge was already about school travel, for us, schools were the obvious focus, and the more important question was which schools to work with. We have around 20 schools in Panevėžys, so we selected 10 of them based on practical priorities. Their location in sustainable mobility plan, priority zones, their position near main cycling routes, and the fact that they will represent some of the largest school communities in the city. So this gave us a focused but still meaningful testing ground. So this is what our solution looked like in practice. We installed bicycle and scooter racks in 10 schools based on the needs of each location. At first, we thought about more advanced and more customized solutions, but in the end, we chose a simply standard option that was easier to install and use in all schools. What mattered to us, it was not only to put the racks in the place, but also to see how they worked in real life. Monitoring was carried out 4 times in total, twice before the intervention in spring and autumn, and then again in the same time. So also we collected feedback from school communities, including students and parents, and combined this with school surveys and on-site observations. So this gave us more realistic picture how the initiative worked itself in everyday school travel. Another important part was how we supported the solution during the whole process. So we involved not only schools, but also other local stakeholders like NGOs who are working in this topic, police, municipal colleagues, and local politicians, decision makers. And we had these discussions before the intervention and also later during the implementation. So at the beginning, they helped us to understand local needs, barriers, and what should be monitored. Later, they helped us to look at the first results together and think about what was already working and what still needs any of changes. But schools administrations stayed at the center the whole time because they were essential for coordination, communication, and later also for the campaigns. Because we also understood that infrastructure alone would not be enough. So we added communication and encouragement campaigns. In selected weeks, students were encouraged to come to school by bicycle or scooter and then place a sticker on city map. This made the campaign very visible and easy to follow in each school. So at the end, the most active classes were selected in every school. And what was especially important for us that this created a lot of engagement in school communities, specifically including children. So the campaigns really helped to make active mobility more visible and more attractive in everyday school life. So here we can already see both results and lessons. And I will not read all of them. Just on the positive side, active mobility became more visible in schools. New parking facilities were used, campaigns created really strong engagement. And we also built much closer cooperation with school communities, and that was a very important result itself. At the same time, this experience showed us how important small and repeated steps really are. Infrastructure works much better when it's supported by communication and encouragement. And school communities are essential partners in making this work. And we also saw that even small-scale pilot initiatives can be very valuable because they help to test what works in real life, create visibility, and build the foundation for longer-term change. So for us, actually, this pilot showed that even small-scale experiments are worth doing because they really help cities to test ideas in real life with low cost and learn quickly and to build change step by step, even if it's small change. Thank you.